special guest,
Cinderella with nowhere to go.
This is the Power Motion Picnic Hour. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Power Motion Picnic Hour. As always, I'm your host, Dave, and as always, with me is...
Trevor.
Trevor, what's going on?
I'd say not a lot, but kind of a lot at the same time. How about you, Dave?
It feels like a lot. I'm calling in our first time ever potting from abroad, calling in from Toronto, Canada.
It's quite cosmopolitan of you.
It's about as cosmopolitan as they get north of the border. El Norte, or Le Nord, as the people in northern Vermont might call it.
Have you seen any running happening up there?
No, I got in last night. I'm here for work, and I haven't gotten out much, but I'm hoping to actually do some running tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured out where I should run yet. I'm kind of in some kind of like strip mall highway land outside the cities.
Yeah. Well, send me your location. I'll see if I can find any interesting trails for you. Perhaps you could take a shot on the trails.
Yeah, this might be I did bring running shoes, and this might be a great thing to talk about next week.
Yeah. Yeah, our first foray into the Canadian running scene.
Yeah, see if I can meet some Canadian runners out there on the road and see if we can have some hilarious misunderstandings that we'll laugh about for years to come because of our cultural differences.
Yep.
How are things back stateside?
Stateside, it's good. I've had sort of a positive shift in my training where I've just been really psyched about my running recently. It's not that I'm running particularly like peak form. I'm not quite back there yet, but I think I've just been enjoying it a lot. I've been focusing on having fun. I've been focusing on some vertical work, and I'm just having a blast out there. So it's been a good week in running.
You're in peak mental form, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Which is, perhaps as important, maybe more, some might say.
I think it's the most important part. I think it's why you and I and many in our listening audience, no matter which of our two main countries they're from, many of our listening audience, that's the most important thing and why they got into running in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really contending for the podium in the upcoming race. I was very proud. I don't think I've shared this story yet, but I was very proud just to qualify for the race. And I can maybe share that story if you're interested.
I would love to hear that. I think we all would.
All right, so I'd say sometime around sort of end of last year into beginning of this year, I decided I'd sort of try to plot out my goals for the year that, sort of settled on, sort of the idea that I do one big event, which like sort of a solo event, which was the Prezi Traverse, and then one race. And the race I selected is the 25-mile Kilkenny Ridge Race up in far north, New Hampshire. So even north of the presidentials. And anyway, so like on their race website, they have all these sort of disclaimers about how you have to have done like a certain length race, or you have to have like, you basically have to sort of like meet some criteria before they let you out there, because it's pretty remote. It could be sort of unsafe if you're not prepared. So I prepared this whole like sort of like dossier of accomplishments. A short dossier is a strong word. It's a short list of things I had done that are like similar, having not done a trail race of this length before. And I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to get in. And so I send this, couple paragraphs. I even put Coach Friend out there. I'm like, I've got this friend. He helps with my training. He can vouch for me. He's done the 50-mile version a couple times, and kind of like went through all this justification. And then I get the response back from Christina Fulsick, who's a bit of a, she runs White Mountain Endurance with her husband. And she's a bit of, she's like very much in the heart of the scene. And she's like, you're in, you qualify. It was just like a
That's
one line,
amazing.
like you're qualified. I'm like, yes. And I told my friend about it, and he's like, yeah, he's like, they're basically just trying to make sure that like, 5K, 10K, like speedy road runners don't just show up thinking it's like, just like, a 25-mile run. Cause it's not the distance like the other stuff I like to do. It's more the elevation gain, the terrain, the remoteness, all that's the factor. So anyway, I sort of like over explained my qualifications unnecessarily, it seems.
I love that. Yeah. It kind of sort of like you put like applying to college, basically.
Yeah,
It sounds like a
yeah.
college application. How would you compare the feeling of acceptance to the feeling you got when you were first accepted to college 23 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say it's a great analogy. I'd say it was quite similar. I was ecstatic. It was my biggest, perhaps my biggest running accomplishment yet, to qualify for the race.
That's awesome. It reminded me of it gave me a flashback to I remember the day I found out I got into college, which was um it was like I would say December 1999.
Yeah.
and I it was actually a Saturday morning, and we'd gone I went out to track practice that morning, and it was winter track, and since our school didn't have an indoor track, we had to go to another town to use their track.
Hmm.
And I don't remember which one it was, but I think we were coming back from Danvers or Beverly, Massachusetts, and the whole track team stopped at Red's in Salem, which is like a famous breakfast diner where I don't
Hmm.
know, where I think maybe George Washington went. Maybe or some he certainly might have. And then on the way back from Reds, I went and did something which was new, which was checking your college acceptance on the internet.
Wow. Okay. So I was going to say
Yeah,
you didn't have the large envelope experience. You actually checked online.
checked online. It was, yeah, and I got the old acceptance, and I got the same feeling. I think probably the identical feeling you just had. Same thing. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm going to northern New England. Which is where we went to college. I know I won't say the name because then I'll just be giving myself more work to bleep out, because any of our longtime listeners know I will bleep out information like that.
Yeah. Before you made it to El Norte proper, you were just glad to be given the green light to go north of Massachusetts.
Anywhere north was fine at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I didn't know how north I'd eventually get, but look at us now.
Look at us now. Um, well, that's great. So how's your running been?
Good. I mean, yeah, aside from not I haven't run yet in Canada, but I did run yesterday before going to the airport, and that was fun.
Okay.
I did kind of like fast a fast 5K, I think. I have no idea how fast I went, but I ran hard, and it felt good. And then I
It's
did.
just, I mean, it's beautiful that when you say that, it's just literally true. Because for somebody, I'd say this came up from one of our special guests that sort of joked you can't have a running podcast without having a Strava account, which you've
Yeah.
proved wrong. But you are probably the most serious runner without like not having done Strava and then gotten like jaded and quit or like sort of tempered it, but you just literally you've never
Nope.
like tracked your running.
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, if I'm in a race, they tell me. And
Yeah.
I've run with people wearing run watches like you, and
Yeah.
like our female gear shed tester who also wears one.
Hmm.
She has a Garmin. I don't know what you have, but you have
I just have
something.
an Apple Watch. I'd like to get a proper running watch at some point. Maybe future gear shed. Or maybe our listeners have some advice. I've
Yeah.
looked. I'd love to hear from the female, our field tester. Love her experience with the Garmin. I'd also
Yep.
I'm interested in the Coros Apex is sort of a entry level price point, but it's supposed to be a pretty good watch. But I'm open to ideas.
Yeah, Instagram seems to love pointing me towards that one, with their
Hmm.
targeted advertising, so that could be a good one. But yeah, no, yesterday I ran to the Hudson, and then from there I ran up in the Nord direction to City Winery, and then ran back home. On
City Winery up Hudson Yards way.
Yeah, it's not quite that far. I think
Not quite that far.
it's like 14th Street.
Okay.
Yeah, I did
Is
run
it
about.
by the little island?
Yeah, just past there. Yeah, just north of.
I love that. I love that. I love that little
You
island.
love the little island?
I do.
Oh, oh, good. I don't
Well,
know.
I didn't know about the little island. So the little island was a surprise when I discovered it on a run, and nobody was there because it was quite early in the morning.
Oh,
So I
that's
think
nice.
that it was a nice like happenstance moment to be like, oh, this little island's right here.
Did you run out
Um,
onto it?
I did. I also appreciated its accessibility. The whole thing's just a giant ramp, which is very
Oh,
cool.
that's great. I've never gone, but I do run by there a lot. So maybe next time, if it's quiet enough, I'll run up and kind of mosey around, or just do some lateral
Just
stuff.
just do some moseying. It's a good place to mosey, I'd say. I wouldn't want to be there with like a lot of people, or I can understand it might be a like a destination now that I sort of know what it is. But
Yeah, I was gonna say
if you're
my main experience with it is like when I'm getting to that part of my run, and usually actually I run much farther, but I run by there all the time, and usually there's tourists who are crossing to get to the island from the street, and they're not aware that they're, despite the fact that there's lots of runners,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
the place is all runners, but they don't know, they're not seeing them apparently. It's like like I don't know, like
I can see that. I can definitely see that. I will, however, despite my love of Little Island, cast plenty of irreverence towards both Hudson Yards and that abomination of a sculpture up there, whatever that thing's called.
the suicide machine.
The suicide machine.
That's what I call it. They don't let people on it anymore because too many people were jumping off of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Lou Reed's
crazy.
metal machine
Metal
death
machine,
trap.
yeah, metal machine attraction. For yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
keep the tourists safe. Send them to Little Island.
yeah.
And then on Saturday I did a great run, which was I had kind of, I guess I'd say on my training calendar, which I is a very loose term for me deciding on certain days I need a long run if I'm gonna I'm gonna run another marathon this fall.
Yeah.
I decided to do a 12-mile run, um, which I did, and it was great. But the problem was Saturday got pretty hot, and I like just was not in a rush to get going, and I should have like probably left early, but I was just like laying around on my couch, drinking coffee, watching the English Premier League on TV,
Yep.
and before I knew it, it was like afternoon, and I had 12 miles to run in like the mid 80s, which I did, but like it was so hot, I definitely almost passed out at the end.
I think that is one thing. As you know, I always sort of like begin to mourn the loss of summer a little bit as it winds down. Like summer's pretty nice in a lot of ways. Not my favorite season, but it's still something about like seeing it sort of pass. I guess it's a little bit quieter at work, and you can kind of get some sort of quality breaks and all that. Good vacation season when you have
Sure.
kids and that and the like. But yeah, it's been hot and muggy.
And hot.
I think we've complained about that on previous episodes, and it's also just rained so much that a lot of the trails I run are like permanently wet. Um, like
Yeah.
there's just standing puddles, and it's it's fine. I don't mind. But if I go out with my running partner Lenny, the dog, he will often get so muddy that like before I can do anything else post run, I have to like sort of hose him down, and it's just an extra step that's not appreciated.
Yeah, that's not a
Um,
necessary part of running, is hosing
yeah,
down your partner. Uh,
right. I don't think you've had that. I mean, I maybe,
oh, I
but
haven't done
anyway,
that.
so
No,
it's I guess it's all to say I'm excited about some cooler weather, and even if I'm not running peak, that if the data shows I'm not at peak form, I will say I am soaking wet with sweat by the time I get back from most runs, which
I was
is a good gauge.
I was mind-blowingly sweaty after the 12 mile in like the 85-degree afternoon uh run. But yeah, no, summer, not great. It's my third favorite season.
Okay.
I've ranked them before, so
What's is your least spring?
that's my favorite season.
Huh, interesting.
I go in order of best to worst. I go spring, winter, summer, fall.
Okay. I
Spring is a time of rebirth. I like the seasons when every day is longer than the one before. That's my favorite
yeah,
thing.
that's a good point. I don't I don't love fall, but sometimes I do.
There's
whatever that means.
yeah, there's some good fashion associated with fall.
Yeah, there's some good fashion. I do like the once you get past the okay, it's just not as nice out and the days are getting darker and you get into that sort of transitional winter time. I do love a good sort of cold, little snow flurries, maybe even like that part of that sort of transitioning into winter time of fall.
Oh, sure.
I've grown to like that.
I mean, overall, I'm one of those, and I think you might be too. I'm one of those Northeastern types who just likes seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just
Big,
like things changing.
big fan of seasons. And I will say as a runner, that's like perhaps the best time of year to run until it gets so like leafy that it gets slippery and stuff like on
Which
the
one?
trails. Fall.
Yeah.
But like cold, crisp, like ground a little bit hard. You're not it's not so muggy. Like, yeah, it's a good running season.
Oh yeah. No. Peak running season coming up. About to do some big runs, train for some distances. It's pretty exciting. I think a lot of our listeners are in the same boat.
Yep. Yep. Well, I know we got a lot to get to today. I mean, we've
True.
had a phenomenal run of special guest appearances.
We've got a lot to get to, which is why I'm glad we spent so much time ranking our favorite seasons. But yes.
Yeah. And talking about we've gone further north in terms of geography that we've referenced than ever before. We made it to Canada at last.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Well, where do you want to go from here?
Well, I think we have some mailbag, right?
We do indeed.
Mailbag's always exciting. It's become my favorite part of the show. We got a mailbag entry from in reaction to our last episode.
Oh, okay.
Right. And hold on, I gotta find this one. I'm sorry. I'm not as prepared as I could be, but a listener wrote in response to our special guest last week, Susie, asking, is there some sort of anti-chafe salve she could put on her thighs, right? Because she tried running in a bathing suit and it wasn't good. And so yeah, we had a listener who wrote in to suggest Squirrel's nut butter, all natural anti-chafe salve. And then along with the picture of the salve, she also put in a request, more songs of the week from Susie, please. So
a double hitter. Well,
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could do a quick impromptu gear shed. I pulled my own squirrel's nut butter out of the shed the other day for the presidential traverse, and it's the best performing anti-chafe salve that I've used.
Where did you put your salve?
Do we really want to go there?
I'm retracting the question. I didn't know it was going to go
you
down
could
that
probably
road.
Guess.
Yeah, there we go. I don't want to have to bleep things in editing. So
yeah. I don't know if it would be very informative, but in the most important places.
Okay, that's why this didn't come up when Susie was asking about salve.
Right. This is why she seemed to want. I mean, and you had provided a recommendation for some Tracksmith shorts, which might also be a good option.
Yeah, that ought to do it. But yeah, so either shorts or Squirrel's nut butter. Great. Well, okay, that's great. And yeah, I second that request for more songs away from Susie, because I loved her recommendations. Particularly my favorite one was Cleopatra by the Nova Twins, which I think
that one was a big hit.
I've been singing that since last week. So
yeah, that one comes in from time to time in my head. Yeah, and I was right there with her on the wet leg suggestion. I've been running to that. I'd say I first heard wet leg running. So it's been it's run for me for quite some time, and that song in particular.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And then and Judas Priest, always a classic choice.
Yeah, just classic. Very good.
Yeah, I'm not a big metalhead, but I sure love Judas Priest.
I added all three to a playlist that I'm trying to decide. I don't really have a strategy for music listening for the race, but I have a playlist sort of ready to go for. I think it'll be like I'll use it a little bit, not the whole time. So anyway, all three are on there.
Awesome. Okay. Do anything else in the mailbag? There's got to be.
We got some mailbag. Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick, I have just an outbound mailbag. I have a question for our listener in Belgium, which is, are you a robot?
Ah, okay.
And I guess
And we'll see
the
if
answer
they
is
answer.
yes, we might not get a
Yeah.
response.
If they answer in binary, we'll know robot.
Our Belgian listening audience is surprisingly consistent. We get one listen from Belgium each week. Very consistent listener. We've sort of prompted our beloved dear listener in Belgium several times, but no correspondence just yet. So I'm hoping maybe this prompts some inbound mailbag.
Yeah, and I guess,
And if not, we'll know they're just a robot, and that's okay too.
and yeah, that's fine. I have nothing against robots. I don't think.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah,
nothing
nothing.
for them.
No,
I'm
no.
neutral.
Um,
But I guess we should let them know the best. How do they write in? They might not know how to write into the mailbag. So the best way to write into the mailbag is to send us uh, a a direct message on Instagram.
Yep, it's at Power Motion Picnic Hour.
Yeah,
Direct message has become popular. You can also leave a comment on any of our posts.
yeah, exactly. We prefer actually a comment. We haven't mentioned this in a while, but we prefer comments that are unrelated to the pictures that we post.
Prompts some good community engagement from
Yeah,
the listeners who typically have more to add to the subjects we cover than we do ourselves. Yeah, that's a quick one. I've got see, I've actually got two more.
oh wow.
Maybe I'll hold one for a little bit. So I did hear from a listener who said that he listens to Power Motion Picnic Hour exclusively on runs, finds it's the best way to take in the pod, and has been tempted to listen outside of running, but has not done so. So a very disciplined listener who promotes listening during running.
Wow. Well, that's cool.
And the second part of that letter was, I think we've addressed it a little bit, but maybe not on pod, is the listener asked, when is the community mile?
Ah,
September 12th. Will there be a remote option? Yes.
yes,
And a request, can we add a skipping category?
definitely.
It's ambulation.
Yeah, that's ambulation if
And
I've ever heard it. Yeah.
yeah, so he's not sure if he's going to compete in the skipping division, but to answer the question, yes, it is an option. We welcome any and all forms of ambulation and ambulation adjacent motion.
Yeah, any way that'll get you a mile down the road,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't involve like a car
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something. Any any smaller form of motion down the road, skipping,
yeah.
moseying. Yeah.
Human powered movement.
Oh, I like that.
Um,
That's a good term. Yeah.
yeah. So sorry, Belgian robot.
Yeah. Sorry, Belgian robot. We're not interested in your 1 minute 9 second mile time.
I think we've been deciding like a little bit how to sort of come up with rankings, and will there be gender categorization or not? Will there be a robot category? I don't really know. I guess it all depends on who shows up. But as a reminder, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'll say we're partially measuring results based on enjoyment, and can a robot enjoy a run?
It's a very existential question. I think it could lead us on a tangent, but I'm going to say no.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is as close to Blade Runner as we've ever gotten.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet, not yet. In a few years, but certainly not yet.
Yeah.
Close, but so that's big news. We've mentioned that a few times on our Instagram, but live on pod, I don't think we've made an official announcement of the time, date, place, rules, and robot exclusion of the community mile,
That's right.
which is, as you said, September 12th, 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
The live editions at the John Lindsay track by the East River in Manhattan, but a virtual option exists everywhere else on the entire planet.
Everywhere else. There will be Bobos for some of the participants. The times will need to be self-reported through you just send them to the mailbag. We'll probably like write them down on a piece of paper or something for those who participate live in New York, but We'll take any times where we're going to need them to be self-reported. So you might need some help with that, Dave, given you don't have run tracking tech.
Do you mean for the live version?
Well, how are we going to get your time without? I guess we can have a timer.
The goal is to enlist someone to be there live, timing everyone, and it'll be less exact than a watch, but it'll be more fun, more enjoyment.
Okay.
So and it'll be close enough.
We're very open. I mean, it's a fluid race, its format, and we did have a sort of our first our first sort of dialogue with Ultra sign up, where we might plan to host or we'll use their platform for future races. We were a little bit too late to get up on Ultra sign up, though we did have a very lovely back and forth with a member of their team, who's very happy to support future races. But for our first race, we are now on run sign up. Just run sign up. You can Google it, or I think we provided a link in Instagram in our bio. Perhaps any issues finding it, just reach out to Mailbag.
Yeah, and there's a Facebook support. There's a Facebook event for the community mile. If anybody still uses Facebook, I have no idea. I guess we're about to find out. You can RSVP there and get some information. Yeah,
and we're hoping if things align, the stars perhaps, we're hoping to get an answer to the question of whether Tom Bosworth can run faster than his world record benchmark for the community mile time of 5:31:08.
One of the all-time great Mailbag questions. Can Tom Bosworth run a mile faster than he can walk a mile?
And we'll see. We're hoping Tom might participate. We'll have some updates on that, I'd say as soon as next week, and then we'll see what happens on the 12th.
That's exciting.
Very excited about the community mile.
Let the countdown begin.
Yeah. The rest of the running world is talking about UTMB right now, at least the trail running world, the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, the World Cup of trail running, of ultra running. Is New York coming up too? NYC Marathon?
New York Marathon. It's in November. It's coming up pretty soon. Yeah, a lot of people are excited about that. I'm excited about the Richmond Marathon.
Yep.
Which is what I haven't signed up yet, but what I'm probably running in mid-November. I've got a couple 12-mile runs under my belt now. So
that's great. I found out recently from a peer podcast that the Leadville 100 race, which just happened, it's like one of the highest elevation, at least in the US. Like it's like crazy how much of it is above 10,000 feet, but one of the aid stations is like so remote that they actually use llamas to get the supplies up there. So like when runners come through, they like get to hang with the llamas for a bit.
That sounds pretty great. That sounds like a great run.
Probably too late to incorporate in this year's TCM, but maybe in future years.
Probably bringing llamas to the community mile.
Yeah.
Well, maybe next year we'll do it in Central Park and we can run by the Central Park Zoo.
Ooh, yeah.
And then we'll just wave at the llamas.
Or those gigantic horses. Sometimes moseying about the park.
Yeah, I was doing the 12-mile run I did a couple of weeks ago in Central Park. At some point, I think I mentioned on pod that I ran it pretty slow, and at some point caught up to one of those carriage rides, and so was in a moment of just where I was just smelled like horse manure. And I was about 9 miles into a run, and so at that point decided to do a little mid-run kick.
Nice.
Speed things up a little bit. Get by those horses. That's all tourists, right? That's such a funny thing, like to see as a tourist, as you just sit there in your horse and carriage ride, like Cinderella with nowhere to go, just like pacing a local runner. Annoying the hell out of a local runner. But anyway, yeah, that was good. Good motivation. Shaved a few seconds off the old time with that one.
That's great. Yeah, I sometimes actually even on the run I did just before this podcast, I had a moment where I was about to break into a race walk or even a mosey, and like there were people ahead, and I'm like, I can't can't be seen
Yeah.
can't be seen transitioning to walk here, like
No,
for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I have to do that in the shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of pressure I find from the crowd while running a race. It's one thing that came up last week a little bit, was talking to Susie about like the exhilaration of playing sports in front of such a large audience. And I was saying I was looking forward to the New York Marathon hopefully being like that, because the Providence Marathon wasn't like that. But I also don't know how. I'm such a ham that I end up like playing it up for the crowd whenever I see a crowd. So I don't know what I would do for a nonstop crowd for 26.2 miles. I don't know if I could survive that. I might need like a more serene kind of, maybe I have to, just for my own personal survival, get into trail races.
Yeah. It'll allow you to with what will happen to your running without external stimuli, like of the type you're used to anyway. So,
well, yeah, my training runs are through the park by the river. They're pretty mellow, and then all of a sudden there's just like a cheering, screaming crowd full of cowbells, and I'm doing cartwheels down Flatbush Avenue or wherever it goes.
Yeah. I guess you're always responding to your environment, whatever that is. But in your case, you like you're very much a people person. You thrive off the energy.
Yeah. I would run a mind-blowingly fast, like first 11 miles and then collapse.
Let's see. So I did have an idea. I figured I'd throw it out to you on pod.
I like that.
We've had just a surge in popularity of our popular running podcast, but how do we get broader reach? I was wondering, like, what it might look like to purchase like a bus stop ad in some random city, and would inherently end up in some like strange small market because that's all we could afford.
Mm-hmm.
Would probably need somebody to take a picture to just validate that it's actually there. But I don't know, like I can see us, I don't know, what would that cost? $50 for a week in Des Moines at some random bus stop?
Well, it might have to be smaller than Des Moines, but I love the idea. It might have to be Dubuque, Iowa.
Do they have bus stops? Any of our listeners who are familiar with the advertising space might help us there. Anyway, so that was just a random idea. And then I guess for the listener, I was wondering, because Susie brought this up too, as maybe one of the reasons for our popularity is runners just love, content. And we heard that from popular runner Jim Pergolesi. When you're out there for, he's running like, is he running 24 plus hours? He must be for some of this stuff.
He will be for his 140-mile race. And I think he was over 24 hours for his first 100-mile race. He then,
for his first 100.
His next one, he got under there. He got to 23 and a half, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And factor in a dirt nap here and there.
Yeah.
You're easily getting up. Anyway, you need content. And anyway, so I thought like a side project could be just reading really long books, like in a not very polished way.
For us?
Yeah.
I like that idea. Do we alternate?
like I'm thinking like Livy's like History of Rome, which was like, I don't know, I think like 70 of the books or the volumes are lost to time, but like,
do we each read a page, or like we alternate page by page?
I don't know. It's not a very fleshed out idea.
Well, we'll give it a shot. Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it as a special episode on our Patreon.
For our Patreon listeners.
Yeah, for our Patreon listeners. Here's us just reading a few paragraphs out of Livy.
Yeah. Here's David Trevor reading Johnny Tremaine. That feels like the right book.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought like, because it's hard to come up with a lot of good original content if you just read a book, and see what happens. Like that's something.
There's so much good stuff in there already.
Yeah. The hard work's already been done.
Yeah, we're gonna next week we're just gonna get on here and read the Aeneid. I mean, come on, how many of you have read that out there?
Right,
Listeners,
right.
be honest. Who's read?
Come on.
You haven't read Virgil recently?
No,
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
listen. You would listen on one of your ungodly long runs.
Yeah, in between dirt naps.
Yeah.
In between dirt naps, just squeeze in a few thousand pages of Virgil.
Yeah, if you do end up, dirt napping during, that's quite all right too.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's okay.
For someone with just a slight to no interest in Virgil, I can identify with going to sleep while someone's softly reading it.
I guess it's another application of this podcast. It's good to facilitate sleep.
What a wild ride it's been.
It's yet another side project.
Yeah, look at us now, as we said earlier in this podcast.
Yeah, but it I guess I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we can move on.
Okay, well, we don't have that much time left, so we have to run on. Okay,
run on.
We have to run on, listeners. Run on wherever your heart takes you. Look at us now, running on.
So I had prepared, I don't know, do you have anything? We've only got a short time left. So
I have nothing. So no, you could take it.
All right. So we had dodged doing shoes and gear shed because it's a very personal thing. But I came up with sort of like a Goldilocks style shoe review. Because I had a few months back, I ended up with Salomon Ultra Glide 2s, but I had purchased from possible sponsor Running Warehouse like 6 pairs and returned 5 of them. So I'll just quickly hit the Salomon Glide Max TRs. The upper feels too weird; it like folds in an odd way. Saucony Exodus Ultra 2s were a little bit too stiff.
Okay.
North Face Endurus, thin forefoot. Hoka Challenger 7, a bit too much stack. And then I ended up with Salomon Ultra Glide 2, just right.
Awesome. That sounds like a great shoe.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the Goldilocks approach is good, right? You don't want to have to Vaseline your feet like you're a roller skater,
like a roller skate,
leather roller skates.
Yeah. They've been all right so far.
Good. Okay, and those are the ones you're going to take out on the race, which is coming up.
I think so. Yeah, they've got about, I don't know, 70, 80 miles on them. I did the Prezi in them to sort of test run a longer distance. They're feeling good. Good grip. I like them uphill. Could use maybe a little more stack if I had to create the perfect shoe, but I think they're going to run.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, I think. So until next time.
Onward. Special guest
Johnny Tremaine.
This is the Power